Greetings, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Pilot Review Show. I am Captain Blade at J52, and I am joined this week by the Wolf of Clan Timber.
What's up, guys, man?
Been a little while since we've been able to get an episode out for you guys. It's been really rainy this past month, and I'm talking to the point that roads have broke off in some counties here in my state. There's been a couple of emergencies declared in a few of the counties, and it's just not been really good. And because of how much rain it's actually been, has actually destabilized my internet in some cases. Thankfully, things seem to be getting back under control. So, and in case anybody's wondering, I'm safe. Where I'm at, it can't get to me. So, there is that.
Yeah, it's been about that way. I mean, in my region, it's been pretty much about the same level of rainfall. He's only about 2 states away from me, and it's been pretty rough. We've been seeing a lot of flash floods. We've been getting about maybe one day of sunshine, get about 2-3 days of rain, and we're not talking about like drizzle. It's been actual rain or heavy rain kind of deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my internet connection's been fine, but other hosts have had a lot of issues, and it's just not been feasible the past couple of weeks to really get our footing in for the show. So we're going to try and make up for that tonight, to some degree.
Yep. Now, tonight, what we're going to be doing to make up for that in part is we're going to be going over a lot of the patch notes, discussing mainly the major changes, the big stuff that has happened within the past little while that we've not really had a chance to go over, but we feel is significant enough to warrant bringing to you guys. But anyways, we're here on the fabulous Club 47, so let's go ahead and dive into this.
Party time!
Party time! But the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things that's happened since the last time we've actually got to broadcast, is they had put out the blog regarding the new Age of Discovery pack. Now, I believe we discussed this very briefly on air one of the last times we were broadcasting, and some of the stuff that we were getting, of course, is the Shran Light Cruiser, the Light Pilot Escort, I spoke a little bit there, the Gagarin Miracle Worker Battle Cruiser. The KDF got the Machla Pilot Bird of Prey. Probably butchered that name.
Probably.
And the Klech Miracle Worker Battle Cruiser.
Bless you.
I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments if I actually butchered that name, because I'm half expecting that I did. So just throwing that out there for y'all. We have the Combat Tardigrade. We have the Klingon and Federation Bridge Officers. Now, some of the things that they did change from the last time that we were talking about this was they actually made the Federation and KDF Bridge Officers account wide. So it means any of your toons that are able to use these Bridge Officers will now be able to claim them. Now, sadly, they didn't do that with the Combat Tardigrade, but the fact that they did it with the Bridge Officers was a pretty huge enough boost to it. So that's some of the stuff that we did get into with the actual pack itself. Now, to get into the stats very briefly, I'm going to touch base on that. Then I'll let Timber give his thoughts on the ships, because I know he definitely has some. If I can scroll back up a little bit here. I scrolled a little too far. And the other thing as well with these ships is you did get the Walker prototype, which was the leveling ship and the leveling bundle that we've talked about previously in other episodes. So that's also included with this much larger bundle. And for those people that already had that, you also got a discount on this much wider bundle. Now, for this particular ship, we're going to start with the Shran Light Pilot Escort. Now, this is one of these ships that does scale with level, meaning as soon as you get out of the tutorial, you can go straight into the C-Store, claim the ship, and it will level all the way to 65 with you. Now, before I actually read these stats off, did we ever figure out if those weapons were levelless?
I think at one point they were. I don't know if they still are. But I know originally with the Walker ship, they were actually showing off some better damage when you got up to level 65 than some very rare weaponry. So I would say use them just like you would if you had the Tier 1 Constitution class, those levelless phasers. They're going to be good placeholders if they're still leveling up with you, as placeholders until you figure out what you want to do with your build. So I would hang on to those weapons. It's always nice when you have budget gear that you can get from missions, but with that one purchase, you've got weapons that you don't have to replace at all until you've finally decided what the hell you're going to do. So that's even better than mission rewards, because you don't have to play the mission. It's already there in the pack.
Absolutely. Because I couldn't remember if we'd figured out if they were levelless or not, but I'm glad you actually had that bit of information handy, because I certainly didn't. But anyways, getting into the stats of this particular ship. Now, our hull modifier is a 0.95 that will actually scale with level. It has a 0.8 shield modifier, 4 forward weapons, 2 aft, 2 device slots, a commander tactical/pilot, 2 lieutenant commander universals, a lieutenant universal/pilot, and an ensign universal. So this is basically a raider. Now, it also has 4 tactical consoles, 3 engineering consoles, and 3 science consoles. And again, that does scale with level. You get 21 degrees base turn per second, so that actually puts that at more of a turn rate than the Defiant, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion. You also get the pilot maneuvers with the ship, can load dual cannons. It has the Graviton Displacer Universal Console. Comes with the hypercharged field projector as the experimental weapon. You get the Raider package, and one thing that I should mention is that you actually do get Raider flanking with this, although it doesn't actually say it. That was one of the things I was able to confirm with our own Ambassador Kale at the time. So they do get Raider flanking. You get for the Mastery package, the Accuracy, Defense, All Damage, and Crit Sev. And then you get the Strike from the Shadows trait. And then you get pretty similar stats on the KDF version. Then, let's see if I could find the Fleet version for you guys. The Fleet version looks like it gets another tactical console. I'm kind of scrolling really quick through some of this stuff. But the Graviton Displacer, essentially, it says, when activated, this console distorts local gravitational forces to create a localized, high-intense gravimetric distortion shortly in front of your ship. Basically, it poofs up a little purple ball, and you can drag stuff around with it, dealing mild kinetic damage. And affected foes will initially lose sensor lock on the vessel due to the massive distortions. But it provides a passive boost to hull pin and tactical readiness. Then there's the Strike from the Shadows trait. It says, attacking a foe that does not have you targeted will placate them for a short duration, and you will gain a significant boost to weapon damage and critical hit chance. In addition to a decrease to your outgoing threat generation, additional attacks on any foe who does not have you targeted will refresh the duration of these buffs. Cannot placate the same enemy more than once per 60 seconds in this way. And then finally we have our hypercharged field projector. It says it generates electric fields that arc out to the nearest target, dealing electrical damage directly to their hull. Due to their inherent nature of electric fields, this attack is nearly impossible to avoid, but rapidly loses damage over range. So that's our escort. Touch base on the stats of the Gagarin really quickly, and then we'll get some thoughts from our resident wolf. For the Gagarin, you've got a hull modifier of 1.25, a shield modifier of 0.95. It's a 5-3 layout in terms of weapons, 5 in the front, 3 in the back. You have 3 device slots. You have a Lieutenant Tactical / Miracle Worker, a Lieutenant Commander Tactical, Commander Engineering / Miracle Worker, an Ensign Science, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal. You have 3 tactical consoles, 5 engineering, 2 science, 1 universal, which is standard for Miracle Worker ships as they come with a true universal slot. Base turn of 7.5. This can load dual cannons. It gets the refracting energy shunt console and the innovation mechanics Miracle Worker ships are famous for. It gets 3 of the cruiser commands, strategic maneuvering, shield frequency modulation, and weapon system efficiency. It gets the battle cruiser command package and the entwined tactical matrices starship trait. I'm going to scroll down and read off what these does. The KDF ship is pretty much the same thing. Now, when activated, the refracting energy shunt fires a burst of pure protonic energy directly from your ship's EPS conduits through the deflector dish towards your target. The protonic energy will course through the target, searing EPS conduits before exiting towards other nearby ships, which the energy will continue to devastate. The console also provides a passive boost to starship power transfer rate and engineering readiness. It can be equipped on any ship and any slot. You can only have one, same as our escort from before. Then when you have your entwined tactical matrices present on the ship, activating beam fire at will or scatter volley causes your next torpedo attack to be a torpedo spread. And activating spread causes you to gain beam fire at will and cannon scatter volley for a short duration. Now, we have figured out that these are rank 1 versions of the abilities that they give you. Now, for your Gagarin, it is going to give you, I think, isn't it another tactical console we said for it?
I believe so.
It's 4 tactical, 5 engineering, 2 science, 1 universal. I think that's another tactical. Yep, that is another tactical console. But anyways, that's some of the stats that we have. Now, I know you've actually done quite a bit of testing with this, good sir. So, what's some of your thoughts on the ships?
Well, honestly, I put my reviews out, and they've been out for a few weeks. I'm not a big pilot person. Now, granted, I did well my review on the Shran, and to me, it's not a light escort. It's a raider, because they had to model the same way as the bird of prey, and the birds of prey have always been raiders. From my understanding and what I've seen, they're all raiders. So it's not a light escort, it's a raider. But that's semantics, whatever. But as far as performance, it's actually not a bad ship. You know, being not used to being a pilot for raiders, the pilot maneuvers, you know, I'm slowly getting used to using cannons on ships, so I actually did pretty well with cannons on the vessel as far as the test. It's not a bad ship. It's honestly quite fun to pilot and everything. I wasn't that impressed with the console, to be perfectly fair. Just because the passive bonuses are so very low that you're really not seeing a whole lot from them. I mean, it's one of those penny and nickel boosts. It's very, very, very minor. And if you've got a console slot that's open, you can put it in. I'd say use it. But there's better options out there, in my opinion, whether it be for damage boosting or for survival, when it comes down to it. However, I do like the trait. Big thing from the trait that we learned, I thought it would just be something that's for alpha strikes. Especially when it comes to cloaking vessels, because you got this, you're getting a 5% category 2 all damage boost, and 5% crit chance, and 60% threat reduction. If, when you attack a target, it's not attacking you first, essentially. So I figured it would be something like a ship that's decloaking, getting an alpha strike, you're attacking them first, so you're striking from the shadows, you're getting the bonus. Or if you're running with someone who's taking the threat, so you're running with essentially a tank. They're taking all that threat, because you're attacking them and they're not attacking you because they're attacking someone else, you're getting the boost. One thing I learned with this trait after the initial tests is that so long as you're the first to attack, you get the bonus from the trait. So the moment you get in 10 kilometers and you fire off your cannons or your torpedoes, if you're the first one to attack the NPC that have been attacking you, you get the bonus from the trait. So essentially the shadows become that 10-kilometer range. The moment you enter into combat zone as far as distance, As long as you attack first, you get the bonus. It's actually a lot more useful trait. I've been using it more and more actively just because there's more and more of a chance to get that extra damage and crit chance. So it's actually a really nice trait, and it's a nice ship. The Gagarin, I've honestly put it on par, and I probably worded it wrong in my video, so I guess I'm making a little addendum here. I put it on similar par, not necessarily to the Vengeance. After rethinking it, it's similar to more like the Jem'Hadar Vanguard warship because of, it's another 5/3, it's got access to Miracle Worker seating, it's got a lesser turn rate, but once you compensate for that with one or two little minor things here or there, you put cannons on the ship or beam arrays, I mean, the thing does hit like a truck. It actually has a really nice setup going for it. Now the trait, these tactical matrices, they were actually triggering stuff. They actually had to fix this. And what was the full name of the trait so I can locate it?
Entwined tactical matrices.
Why, that's right. It starts with an E. Okay, so I got it. So, it was actually a bug when this first came out. Whenever you activated Torpedo Spread, it applied Fire at Will 1 and Scatter Volley 1. So it's not something that, you're going to get massive DPS chunks out of. However, apparently it was having the unintended side effect where if you're using things like the Morphogenic 3-piece, when you activated Torpedo Spread, since it applied Fire at Will and Scatter Volley to your ship, it would also apply the bonuses from the 3-piece on the Morphogenic as if you had activated the BOF power. So for activating one BOF power, you are getting all 3 bonuses from the Morphogenic set on your starship. And apparently that wasn't intended, because you're not actively activating those powers. It was, I guess, a way of putting it was cheating the system, is the way they could be looking at it. But it was having unintended side effects. We put in a bug report, and I believe it's been fixed now, where you're able to basically stack torpedo spreads with this thing. And we put that in for the bug report. Blade already knows about it. It's already been filed. I think it's already been fixed. Where you could have 2 torpedo spread 1s sitting, where you fire for torpedo spread, but there's already another one waiting. So the moment the cooldown goes away on the torpedo, if it's a fast-firing torpedo, you've got another torpedo spread waiting, let's say 3 or 4 seconds later, instead of having it cool down entirely. So it was having some things they have had to fix that, that have been mentioned in the patches where they've been fixing it and reworking it so it's working more as intended. And pretty much for me, this trait, the way it's working, it is best with low tactical console seating. If you're dealing with something that only has 1 or 2 tactical seats, but they're low, let's say 1 Lieutenant Commander tactical, or maybe an Ensign tactical and Lieutenant tactical, and that's it, this is where the trait's going to shine, because it's going to give you access to additional powers. That way you don't have to slot all your tactical powers. You can slot 1 or 2. Let's say you slot Torpedo Spread or Fire at Will on a Sovereign. That free Sovereign you get at level 40. You can do putting Fire at Will 1 on the build, and every time you activate Fire at Will, you get a free Torpedo Spread. So you can run a torpedo in the build, have a Torpedo Spread built in, and have TAC Team. Well, now instead of having to slot, let's say, Torpedo Spread 2, you've now got access to Beta or Focused Assault. So it helps out with those lower levels. The console doesn't really speak to me because of how I build. Once again, the bonuses were kind of low, all things considered. Maybe there were better options. But I guess the long and the short of it is, the ships are absolutely great. I liked them. They were fun. They can hit very hard. They can be worked around for heavy survival as well. The starship traits were nice. The consoles were so-so. And quite honestly, I thought they would have been part of it, a 2-piece set bonus, or built into where they were part of set bonus with the Vulcan ship from the anniversary. Because this is the first time that we've seen, at least that I recall, and Darkblade can correct me on this one, the first time in a few years now where there hasn't been a console set bonus with the anniversary ship. Past couple years that I can recall, you have a set bonus where you have the anniversary ship and then you have some SARoss ships, and you put all those consoles together on a starship, whatever the case may be, and you get, you know, multiple bonuses. Like the flagships, the Odyssey flagships. They paired, I believe, the Crinum science vessel, that kind of thing. So they're good ships, whether it be Fed or KDF. They'll definitely get the work done for you. And got the spare EC, you like what you see, I'd say go for them.
Yep. I have to agree with those assessments as far as the way I like to build, honestly. Now, for me and everything, I'm kind of in the same boat as far as the consoles go. I wasn't too terribly impressed with them. I definitely think they have their uses. To me, out of the two of them, the one from the pilot ship is probably going to be the one I would use the most out of the two. At least for the way I like to build, because that's going to give me a little bit more control of the battlefield, potentially. Without maybe having to slot a Gravwell, or if I don't have the ability to slot a Gravwell, maybe I can redirect a ship somewhere away from where I want them, or don't want them to be. So, there is that aspect. For some ships as well, like you were saying with the tactical seating, one of the things I've actually been experimenting with is using the entwined tactical matrices actually on the Keldon, and seeing how that's going to do for me. Because the way I build, if I go for another tactical seat to slot a torpedo spread, so I could use the NOS Contorp, that's going to mean I only have one science power, which is really going to hurt the ship if I went that route. So this is going to open up some options that I'm actually glad to see we're getting. Open up a bit more potential with certain science builds, open up some more potential with limited ships. So definitely some good that can be had here. But moving along, we've got quite a few patch notes this evening, so we're going to kind of break them up a little bit so we're not bombarding you guys all at once, because there's several sets of patch notes that we actually need to get through. So we're mainly going to pick out some of the ones that are the biggest. Now, this first set of patch notes was on February the 14th, so this was the Valentine's Day patch notes. And some of the biggest ones that they had was actually the ones in regards to the personal endeavors and the photonic officer stuff. Now the ones from the personal endeavors, they made some changes to it. It says, all complete TFO personal endeavors have had their requirements changed at medium and hard difficulty. The new requirements are complete 1 associated TFO, any difficulty. On medium, it's complete 2 at any difficulty, and at hard, it's complete 3 at any difficulty. Now, I'm going to preface this very quickly and go through this one. Now, a lot of people were confused as to why they were doing this. And one of the big reasons as to why they were doing this and making the change, at least from what I've understood with some of my conversations with some folks, is that the way it sat before is people could go into a TFO. Let's say you had an example of complete 3 Borg TFOs. Well, if you wanted to just get through it really quickly, sometimes people would go in on normal just to get it done, and that would be the end of it. Well, because they were going in on normal, then it wasn't counting towards their progress. And that's because there was essentially a hidden requirement that it had to be on advanced difficulty or elite. So this change basically fixes it now so that the hidden requirement is no longer there. Then finally we had the change to Photonic Officer. It now lasts 20 seconds, has a 30-second cooldown, and it now reduces the cooldown of Bridge Officer abilities by 2%, 3%, or 4% per second while the ability is active. So every second it's active, you get that much little bit extra knocked off of your Bridge Officer cooldowns. Now, that's just some of the stuff in here. That's 2 of the biggest ones that I saw, but Sir Timber, what was some of your comments on this stuff? And things that
I'll do this one real quick. Go ahead and scroll just so I can see systems. Honestly, the biggest 2 were the ones that you brought up. I mean, it did stand out that they fixed the projectile weapon damage perk it was not affecting all projectile weapons. But the biggest things to me were, it resolved an issue that caused destructible torpedoes used by your summons to damage you and your foes instead of whatever fired the torpedo and its foes. So pretty much you had destructible torpedoes fired off by a friendly and it would hit you. That's a bad thing. They fixed that. Yay. But basically the big one for me, like I said, is Photonic Officer. And I get why they did it. And it makes sense now that I've actually looked over it, because it's every second you get that cooldown. And with it being reduced to 20 seconds, yeah, that might seem like it's eh. But here's the thing, it's got a much shorter cooldown once you use it. And when I broke down the math, if you're using rank 3, that's 20 seconds times 4, because every second it's a 4% reduction. You're looking at up to an 80% reduction over that 20 seconds. And it's going to be slow and it won't break global cooldown. But that's a tremendous amount of cooldown to where it's basically just going to guarantee things are on global if you're using it. Rank 2 is 3%, so that's 60%. And then the lowest one now is 40. The original was 30, 50, 70 over that 30-second period. Now it's 40, 60, 80 over 20 seconds. So technically it's a little bit of a boost / leveling out kind of deal. But the big thing for it still is if you're using it, you can't break global cooldowns. So if you've already got cooldown reduction somewhere else in the build, maybe it's a skill tree point, maybe it's a console, space reputation trait, whatever the case may be, if you're using this, you can't break global. So it might end up being a wasted slot, just like it was before. So it just depends on how you build. But those were really the two big ones for me. Everything else was just, alright, glad it's fixed.
And one other thing, really quickly, resolved an issue that caused the chronometric Polaron weapon to display worse than it actually was.
I forgot about that one.
Which is just a tooltip change.
That was actually something I was glad to see, because originally the chronometric Polaron stated 15% shield penetration to self, and that was the tooltip. Just 15% shield penetration to self, and that would basically give all your weapons that shield pen. Then they did a change where it showed that it gave plus 15 Starship Shield Pin skill tree. Well, you do that math, 15 Starship Shield Pin for skill tree, 15 equaled out to maybe 0.9 or 1% shield pin, which looked like it was a tremendous nerf. And now that they've said it's a tooltip error, they're showing plus 300. Well, plus 300 Starship Shield Pin is 15%. It's been corrected. So that's a good thing that they went back and they fixed that, because that still makes these useful. Granted, procs are still happening at that low rate, but the simple fact that at least we know we're getting what we were originally getting the first time is a good thing.
Basically, in a nutshell, folks, is they just converted it over to what the appropriate skill would be in the tree, is essentially all that was done with the chronometric beams. They weren't nerfed, and now they fixed the tooltip error, so we're now seeing the appropriate values we should have been getting. Now, moving on to our second set of patch notes, and then we'll take a look at another one of our articles. We have some patch notes from the 16th. There were a few issues that were going on at the time, and there's not really many patch notes here to this one. But one of the biggest ones resolved an issue that was causing upgraded items to become account bound. Now, the big deal with this one was, at the time, if there was an issue, or there was an issue that if, say, I wanted to upgrade a Mark 12 beam, well, the moment I tried to upgrade that item and get it to 15, it would bind to my account, even though it was previously an unbound item before. So that had been taken care of. But, yeah, any particular things out of this one, good sir?
Let's see here.
I see one, but anyway.
No, it was pretty much that one because that became a huge irritation for the entire gaming community as far as STO. Because when they were fixing this, it wasn't just the upgraded items. What we were seeing before this patch was also we were seeing things like R&D materials would be a bound on account thing. So R&D materials, you'd open up and get deuterium from a run or something. All of a sudden, it wasn't just something that we transferred and sold and all that. You'd have deuterium as account bound, which was the weirdest thing. You'd end up having things from the lockboxes account bound. It was a very weird bug. So when they fixed this upgrading items, they also fixed that as well, which was a very nice thing that I guess they didn't want to necessarily mention in the patch notes, but they fixed it, so I'm glad.
Yep.
Other than that, just looks like, business as usual. They're fixing stuff. I liked it.
One that I did miss, and this was one that was actually reported to me, is fixed an issue that could cause a continuous warp-out loop for captains in the Discovery tutorial. Basically, you would beam up, you would try to warp out, and you would get stuck in this continuous animation, and there was no way to break it. So you pretty much had to close out the game and try to attempt it again. I heard some people say that they got through, some people that they didn't. And more often than not, it was that they didn't make it through that loop, so that was taken care of as well. Alright, getting into our next article. This is the event that's been going on for a little bit now, and we have the Battle for the Soul of Pavo. Now basically, you had your featured TFO, you plop in 14 of the little tokens, you get the Crystal Prism Universal Kit module, you get some marks into lithium, as well as 3 featured TFO reward boxes that'll give a choice of either an enhanced universal tech upgrade or a captain specialization point box. Now, I personally am going to recommend the specialization point because that's going to shave off a good bit of grinding. But, yeah. We also have the little purchase that you can do for about 800 Zen that will give you about 10 of the tokens you can drop in, as well as a universal ultimate tech upgrade. So, now I've not actually had a chance to experiment with this thing yet. I know our resident Wolf has, so what are your thoughts, good sir?
I like the little kit module. It's not going to be DPS breaking or anything, but the good thing is you can have up to 5 of the crystals sitting there at one time. Now they are targetable, but that does add in the added dimension that because they're targetable and they are firing pulses out, they technically can collect threat. So you might have your NPCs firing on the crystals instead of you. And since they gain damage the more crystals that are out, they link up, they can do some decent damage. Also psionic damage, which bypasses shields. So you're dealing with crystal turrets that do shield bypassing damage. And they can collect threat for you so that you might not necessarily take all the hits when they're firing out pulses. And they don't necessarily fire all at one target. Depending on how it's spaced, they might be firing at multiple targets at once. So, will it be ground gear breaking? No. Will they be fun to use and maybe give you an edge in combat? Yes. Will they be heavily useful in some pack whenever that comes back? Absolutely. So it's just going to depend on how you build and everything, but I think they're definitely going to find their uses in the game. So it just depends on how you build and if you see use in it. And if you don't see use in it, just collect the tokens, because these are shared tokens for events now, and just save them up for the next event that uses the tokens to get that next item.
Yep. Now, I actually, after the show, I'll probably be doing one, and I think I should be able to get mine. But from what I've seen, I have to concur a little bit with what Timber's saying. I know we've actually been on a run or two where he's had them, and it's interesting. I have to say that much. And the run itself, it's pretty simple and straightforward. You purge the crystals, shoot a few Mirror Universe folks, and that's pretty much it. Quick, simple, and easy. Then, coming into another set of patch notes, we have a set of patch notes for the 21st. Now, I realized there was a lot of patch notes that were coming out. They were trying to fix some issues due to some stuff that was going on at the time. And that's just the way stuff went from time to time. Is technology is fickle at best, and occasionally likes to be a pain in the butt. But on the 21st, we actually had our event drop in. They changed a couple of the things that was going on at the time. And basically one of the biggest ones was resolved an issue that when using the Echo Papa drone, it stopped the player from being able to run.
Finally.
Yes. Now that was, I have to say, that was probably the most annoying thing ever as far as kit modules. Well, I'm not going to say ever, because I can think of some that were even more annoying than that. But that one ranked pretty high on my list. Now, what about you, good sir, for this set of patch notes?
I mean, pretty much that'd be the one I was looking at, because I honestly can say it's the reason why I stopped using it, and probably a lot of players stopped using that Echo Papa, is because the moment it launched, you couldn't run until it went away. So, to me, at least for some people in their ground builds, this could be considered maybe a quality of life improvement? Question mark? Because now you can finally launch it and then run away. Not kind of briskly jog away like you don't have a care in the world. You can actually run. That's a good thing.
So basically smack the drone and get the heck out of Dodge. Okay. Yeah, like I say, we'll have access to all of this in the notes for you guys, for anybody that may want to review some of this stuff and everything. I know we're kind of covering some of this stuff late, so a lot of you probably already know, but we did want to touch base on some of the more, I guess, substantial things is what I'm looking for. But coming up on one more little minor set of patch notes, and this was for the 22nd. Now, this was when they had extended the anniversary event very, very slightly. One of the big things that they had was resolved an issue that could prevent players from receiving the featured TFO boxes from completing the project. Captains who experience this can claim the missing boxes from the Reclaim store once per account. So there was a bit of a bug keeping people from being rewarded properly. That was taken care of. And the biggest one resolved an issue that was preventing some lifetime subscription members from accessing reclaimable items in the C store. Now, I personally, I didn't really see that issue. I know some people did, and there was a couple of folks that nagged the ever-living daylights out of me, which I do appreciate reporting that, by the way. But I'm just curious, good sir, did you actually run into this one or know anybody that did?
Which one, the lifetime subscription thing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because it sparked a little conversation with me and a few friends on the actual, items and rewards you get from being a lifetime sub, because, they couldn't access them. And I gotta agree with some of the things that I was hearing, that they need updates. As some of them, to me and to others, are a little outdated, but people were pissed off that they couldn't access them when this happened. So they're still nice. People still want them. It's just they could use some freshening up. The biggest request: a Dominion veteran starship, as reasons. And quite honestly, if we're going through when it comes to this Age of Discovery, we have Discovery tunes we can create. A Discovery veteran ship would be kind of nice too. But yeah, I saw a few people that were upset about this one. I haven't heard from them since, at least not in a negative way, so they've got to be rather happy they got these back.
Yep. But I do know that from the various streams, if y'all have been keeping up with 10 Forward, that is on the radar for Spartan and some of the others to be able to do. They haven't had time to actually sit down, from what I understood them saying. They haven't had time to actually sit down, do all the legwork and everything to actually get it done. So basically, folks, in a nutshell, and I'm probably going to get slapped for this, but nag the ever-living daylights out of their bosses to give them time for us to have those new ships. But
while you're at it, nag them to update the captain's table. It's old and dusty. I'm done.
Alright. Now moving on to one of the big things is the anti-fraud updates. Now this is one of the biggest ones that happened fairly recently. Within, I think it was just the past week or two. Or it's just the past week, I think,
yeah.
Actually. Yep. So, little behind on some of my dates, actually. But this is one that at first a lot of people had a bit of trouble understanding. Now, one of the things that they wanted to do, and the reason they have a lot of these anti-fraud measures in place, is it's meant to protect Cryptic as a company, but also us players. Now, essentially, the biggest change that they made is that if you did something, as it sat before, if you did something to trigger a probationary period, such as, say it was your first time buying Zen, that usually triggers a probationary period until they have time to verify it. Then if you go through Steam, I know sometimes that can cause issues. If it's a new payment method you haven't used, that can sometimes trigger a probationary period. But point being, there were several things that could do that. And I know I've ran into it a few times. I think Timbers ran into it once or twice. But one of the biggest issues with the probationary period that a lot of people didn't realize is if, for example, say while I was on this probationary period, they gave me my Zen. If I went to purchase something with that Zen that would normally be tradable, such as a 10-pack of keys, then that 10-pack of keys would be permanently bound to my account, and I couldn't do anything with it. So I couldn't sell it, I couldn't trade it, I pretty much had to open them or discard them. Well, the biggest thing that changed is now, if you're on one of those probationary periods, anything that is purchased now is bound to your account for just 7 days. Now, some people were saying stuff like, oh, well, EC is going to be useless, we can't sell stuff on the exchange now, and no, you actually could. And this actually makes it better, because now, if you don't realize you're on one of those probationary periods and you buy something, it's no longer permanently bound to your account, it's just bound for those 7 days, and that's it. We can debate as to whether or not 7 days is too long or not, but this basically brings some of their anti-fraud measures in line with something similar to Old Republic, for anybody that's played SWTOR. Basically over there they have a similar system for about, I think it's 3 days, 4 days, something like that. Once you purchase an item, it's bound to your account for those 3 days. Afterwards, do whatever the heck you want with it. But, what's some of your thoughts on this one, good sir?
I mean, I'm okay with it. It's going to be a slight irritation getting used to this new system. Obvious reasons. New, but if the whole point of this is to simply safeguard your account, further safeguards against fraud in your account, where, let's say, you just bought some keys, you bought a stack of 40. You got 2 key ring bundles, and you're going to open boxes when you get home. You bought them before you leave for work, let's say. They're sitting in your account. And while you're at work, someone hacks your account. It's happened before in gaming. And Blake can attest to that too. It's happened before. We've seen the Facebook posts. Someone hacked my World of Warcraft account. Someone's hacked my EVE Online account. That kind of bullshit. They hack your account randomly. They see the keys. And they do whatever they want with them. They send them to their account. Or they sell them off. Or they sell them off and then take that profit and then email it to somebody. Or they just randomly give them away. Whatever the case may be. You come home and the keys are not there. I can see why they'd want to have it where there's the option where they can be account bound for a few days to make for sure that you get access to using them. Now, if you're just buying them just to sell them, yeah, that's an irritation. It's going to take a few days for you to put the keys up. But if they're not instantly locking it to you just because you bought 10 keys for the first time in 6 months, it's only because you bought a load of them and you're trying to sell them quickly. I can see that. I can see the anti-fraud. I mean, hell, honestly, it's a good thing to have a lot of open anti-fraud measures that the company is saying, hey, we want to make sure nothing happens to your account, nothing happens to things you purchase. We want to make for sure that you're the one purchasing them, you're the one selling them. They're just safeguarding the players at that point. I can completely agree with it. I'd rather them be more safe than sorry, and then it's like, well, I lost all these keys and you owe me this and da-da-da-da. I'd rather them just play it safe and they catch a little flack for playing it too safe, but making for sure we have our stuff. I'm going to be okay with that.
And people, I think a lot of people need to understand too, and again, I'm not harping on anybody, we want to make sure everybody understands this. That's why we're taking the time to explain some of this stuff and what's going on with it. Is basically, it's a change that will make it even better than it was before. So the biggest thing here is people need to understand too that if, fraud does happen, God forbid it ever happens, but let's face it, there's some real douchebags out there on the internet that they don't care who they screw over, they don't care who they hurt, and they're in it for themselves. That's what most of those gold seller types are. I'll just go ahead and say that. Yeah, I have no sympathy for gold sellers, because most of the stuff they get is through fraud and theft and things of that nature. And if somebody's buying from those guys, they're enabling that theft. But aside from that small mini rant, if and when something like that does happen, say somebody's account is breached, their, a really large bill is ran up on that account. That affects Cryptic in the negative as well, as now they're going to have to deal with chargebacks. And that's fraud against them. That hurts them and it hurts the player both. So there's a vested interest in them trying to protect the accounts, not just for themselves, but for the players as well. Because if you think a company's not going to try to protect the information that you willingly share between just you and them, then you're probably not going to want to do much with them again. So, like I say, yeah, it kind of sucks having to get used to some stuff as far as that goes, but like Timber said, it's better to, as the classic saying goes, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Coming up on our final patch notes for the evening, we have the patch notes from the 28th, and some of the biggest things were the Pavo Dissension. Crystals and agonizers are no longer interactable when the mission has been completed. Adjusted various rock placements that was causing them to float. Interesting. But, yeah, what's, if anything, that stands out to you in this bunch, good sir?
Quite honestly, 2 really stood out to me. Well, 3 of them. And it goes to, first off, the entwined tactical matrices we were talking about earlier in here. It was causing, whenever you activated the trait, it would cause the buff from the protomatter consoles, the healing consoles, to activate. It was counting as multiple activations of the buff powers that would activate them. So it was false triggering them in a way that it shouldn't have been. That was nice. Secondly, apparently the Tapao console, and I never got to see this actually happen when I was doing my tests with the Tapao, but the console was triggering a 15-second cooldown with some of the bridge officer powers that you could have. More than likely it was, some science powers. But now that's no longer the case. So apparently there was some weird coding there where in some instances it was being treated as a bridge officer power instead of a console power. The fact they fixed that's nice. To me, the biggest one is the one below it, where It resolved an issue with the approaching Agony console, which I happen to like that console anyway. It's phaser damage, it's crit chance, it has a phaser cloud that burns targets, it's a beautiful console. Well, apparently, the damage cloud was expiring after 20 seconds, instead of lasting for the full 40 seconds that it's supposed to. So it only had a half duration. So the fact that they fixed it so it's actually going to last the full 40 seconds it's intended to is a really good thing, especially for advanced and elite content. You're going to have twice as much phaser damage burn and damage resistance debuff on those targets because it's actually lasting the full duration now. So that's more damage potential, that's more chances for the disable that the thing causes, more uptime on the debuff. A really good thing that they caught that and they fixed that. So those were the top 3 that I saw out of this mini patch that are really going to affect people's ship builds going forward.
Alrighty, then I think that about covers it for our patch notes. Like I say, we'll have a lot of this in our show notes. Like I say, we're kind of catching up a little bit, so we're running a bit longer tonight than we would normally. But one of the big things we have on our PC, and this is going to be going until the 7th, which I believe is
Thursday.
This Thursday, so you got a little bit of time left to get these still. Go out there and get your Phoenix prize tokens, as well as a chance at some of the ships from past events. On our Epic tier, we have the Resreth, the Sartheln, the Samsar, the Crinum Science Vessel, the Ferengi Nandi, the Vorgon Xiphus, the Breen Chelbolg, the Lucari Hokun Science Vessel, and then ultra rare we have the old T5 Jem'Hadar attack ship, the Chelgret, the Plesh Brak Heavy Raider, the Ryzian Corvette, the Ryzian Luxury Cruiser, and the Voth Bulwark. And we also have some other nice stuff, such as our Red Matter Capacitor, our Zephyr Cochrane Shotgun, Crystal and Energy Torp, our Agony Field Rifle, the Future Flyer Board. Then we have the VSS Tanius, as well as a host of other stuff, such as the Emergency Con holograms, and other nice boosts that go with it, especially our Phoenix Techs and whatnot. There's a host of items you can get here. Now, as far as the big item that I'm going to recommend for people, for my tanks out there that are wanting a good set to use, I'm going to strongly recommend you pick up the Kobali Samsar if you get access to an Epic token, as that's going to give you access to one of the strongest, if not the strongest tank sets in game, as well as a very nice warp core and a very nice console, which is going to be one of the strongest healing consoles in game, in my opinion. But yeah, any quick thoughts on our Phoenix promo, good sir?
Not really. All I can say is good luck. All I got. It's got good stuff in it. Good luck.
He hates me because I've already pulled I pulled an Ultra token on my 4th box this go around.
It's not like I have good luck at Vegas, so it's like eh. I bet $1, I lost $1. That was the end of my gambling addiction, so it's just kind of like eh.
But yeah, like I say, definitely go out there and get them Phoenix Techs, and if you're lucky enough to get a ship or something else, then that's great. Those Phoenix Techs are going to help you out quite a bit. Also, don't forget to claim your free once-a-day box. Remember to do that as well. But anyways, that's what we have as far as articles. It took us a while to get through a lot of this stuff. There was some good catching up on stuff. There was some significant things we did want to touch base on, even though I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with a lot of those patch notes. But coming up into our final segment of the evening, we actually have our budget build. Now, not surprisingly, this one's been done for a little while now. At the time that we constructed this budget build, there was some banter going on in one of the groups I'm part of, where somebody had mentioned they wanted to make a tank out of the Odyssey using the 3-piece console set. So I figured, what the heck? I'll throw something like that together and see what we've got. Now I know this is a ship that's close to Timber's own heart, something he loves to fly, still breaks out on occasion, Kind of similar to me and the Keldon, I guess. But for this particular one, we went with the TAC Artie as our basis for this. Now, it's a 4-4 layout, 4 weapons in the front, 4 weapons in the rear. Because it's really easy to make a strong set as far as budget level, we went with Polarons in this case. In the forward arc of the ship, we have the chronometric Polaron beam array, the morphogenic Polaron torpedo energy torp, the piezo Polaron beam from Lucari Rep, as well as the temporal defense Polaron beam. In the rear of the ship, we have 2 of our Dominion Polaron beams, which means you get to hear Curland here a few times. Then we have our heavy chronometric turret and our morphogenic Omni turret that can fire as a Omni beam or a turret. There's some specific reasons as to why we have the turret and not the Omni. We'll talk about that in just a minute. For our shields, engines, warp core, and deflector, we went with an old favorite set of mine, which is the Soul Defense set. Now, what makes the Soul Defense so potent as a tanking set is for the 2-set bonus, you actually get the free equivalent of a neutronium alloy armor, actually slightly more improved, because you get a little bit of extra kinetic resist off of it. And you get that benefit of a neutronium without actually having to slot the neutronium. So it's basically free damage resistance to you and damage reduction. Then the 3-piece bonus, it's a very massive heal that can affect you and several allies close to you, and depending on the situation, can restore your health from nearly dead almost all the way back, if not outright to full health. Since the Soul Defense set does not come with a warp core, we have to source one out, and we're using our tried and true temporal phase overcharged core from the Butterfly mission. Now, I realize we use this quite a bit and sometimes near exclusively on our budget builds, and that's because, in our opinion, it is very hard to top this core on the free end, mainly for the capacitor that it gives. And if you're familiar with the Temporal Negotiator device, this basically does the same thing, except in the form of a warp core capacitor, and will cut your bridge officer cooldowns in half for the duration that it's active. Now, we'll take a look at our weapon set bonuses and stuff in a moment, and we'll explain why we're using that. We'll also look at our 3-piece consoles and explain some of the benefits you're getting here. Now, for devices on the ship, you have 4 device slots that you can use. We usually like to think of those as personal preference. However, there is one in particular we do like to recommend, which is the Subspace Field Modulator, which will basically give a free neutronium alloy armor worth of resistance, as well as a substantial defense bonus while it's active. The only downside is it does debuff you for a minus 400 protonic damage resist rating, so it can be a double-edged sword depending on when you use it. There's not a lot of foes that touch protonic damage, but there are enough sources there that it warrants mentioning in my book. Some other devices that you might like are Jevnite hardpoints, energy amplifier batteries, your red matter capacitor from your Phoenix events, and that sort of thing. Then for your console layout, you have 4 engineering, 3 science, and 4 tacticals. Now for your tactical consoles, we'll start with those because they're the easiest to explain. We have 2 of our energy distribution manifolds, since we don't have a source of Polaron-specific consoles at the moment. Then we also have our chronometric capacitor and our morphogenic matrix controller, which are going to be tied into our Polaron sets. We'll take a look at those momentarily. For engineering, we have our Trillium D-plating, which comes from the Ragnarok mission. It's basically a neutronium alloy armor and a fuel generator slammed into one. It's going to give you some extra damage resistance as well as shield capacity. The next thing we have is our piezoelectric focuser from the Lucari Rep. This is going to help round out the 2-piece along with our beam. Now this is going to give a bit of plasma damage for those that enjoy plasma. This is the alternate energy type that the piezo or the Lucari Rep got. Now it's going to give some Polaron damage, some turn rate, a bit of shield cap, So it's basically a field generator, an RCS, and a tactical console slammed into one thing. Next we have our assimilated module. In a nutshell, it's going to give some crit chance, some severity, as well as control expertise. And then we have our flagship tactical computer. Now it's going to give 19% directed energy damage for free. That's a Cat 1 bonus. Then it's going... it prevents the target from using or being affected by fleet weapon acceleration for 60 seconds, so there is a slight lockout there for duplicate activations. 50% flight speed strength, 50% turn rate strength for 15 seconds, 33% firing cycle haste for energy weapons for 15 seconds, and that ties in to some of our other bonuses. We'll take a look at those in just a moment. So basically a haste console that you can pick up. And we should mention this does stack with the Crenum console and similar effects. Then for science consoles, we have our Temporal Disentanglement Suite. This is a really good console that's going to give you some nice benefits. It's going to give you a nice chunk of critical chance and severity, depending on what level of aux power you're at. It's also going to give a nice chunk to our shield capacity, as well as a bit of shield damage resistance. So it's one of those rare consoles that kind of lends something to all three things. Then we have our final two consoles from our set. We have our Dampening Wave Emitter. This is going to give even greater shield capacity, so you've got 15% maximum shield cap. It's going to do a bit of radiation damage every second for 15 seconds. It's going to debuff the foe for a minus 80% energy damage for 15 seconds, and potentially disable for 5 seconds on a 2-minute recharge. So, depending on when you use this, could be a lifesaver. The next thing we have is our Adaptive Emergency Systems, which was the third console in the set. This gives a little bit of damage resistance, a bit of maximum hull capacity, and it gives plus 50 bonus all damage resist for 30 seconds. Effect is increased to 75 if the health is equal to or less than 50%. It also gives plus 30% bonus all damage for 30 seconds. Effect is increased to 45% if health is equal to or less than 50%. So basically a very large Cat 2 bonus is what you're going to get. And that's what we have for our consoles. Now we'll take a look at our set bonuses in game here for you guys and explain why we're using some of the consoles that we are. Now I have some of these equipped on a ship already, so we can take a look at our set bonuses. Now our morphogenic set, in a nutshell, these bonuses are the easiest to explain. If you use a Fire at Will, Beam Overload, Scatter Volley, Rapid Fire, Torp Spread, Torp High Yield, or one of the mine patterns, you get a 15% recharge time reduction to all of those powers. So it cools them down 15% faster. So pretty much any of your firing mode enhancement tactical powers. Now if you use one of those powers for the 3-set bonus, if you activate Fire at Will or Beam Overload, you get a 2% critical chance boost, stacking up to 6%. If you activate Scatter Volley or Rapid Fire, you get a 10% critical severity boost, stacking up to 30%. If you activate Torpedo Spread, Torpedo High Yield, Mine Pattern Alpha, or Mine Pattern Beta, you get a 7.5% weapon damage boost up to a 22.5% boost. That's going to be a Category 1 bonus for you. So pretty hefty bonuses that we have as far as our morphogenic set. Then we also have our chronometric set we're going to be taking advantage of. Now, the 2-piece isn't too terribly impressive in my book. It gives a little bit of aux power, as well as additional aux power that increases the lower your aux power goes. So it's a little bit of free power. I'm not really going to sneeze at that or complain. Then for your chronometric energy converter, you're going to get a pretty significant Cat 1 exotic damage boost for 15 seconds, as well as an energy damage or energy weapon damage boost for 15 seconds. Now those numbers are really distorted because we're reading them from the point of a ground map. Those go up a lot higher to I think about 15 to 30%, somewhere around in there, for the 3 set, and that's going to round out our chronometric set bonuses. Then getting into our Odyssey tactical, or getting into our Odyssey 3-piece bonuses. Now, your 2-piece bonus is 2% critical chance, as well as a bit of flight turn rate. Not the most terribly impressive stuff as far as the flight turn rate goes, but that critical chance is nice. Then you get your 3-piece bonus. When receiving damage, while a shield facing is depleted, 10% chance to apply Deadly Response, which can stack up to 3 times. This is going to give you 2,500 temporary HP for 10 seconds, and 10% bonus all damage for 10 seconds. So potentially a 7,500 temporary HP and a 30% Cat 2 bonus once a shield facing drops, potentially. So you're going to be stacking up pretty huge bonuses here, as far as your consoles and some of your set bonuses are going to allow you to do. Then, for your set bonus for your Lucari stuff, basically you're getting free Plasma, Polaron, and Photon projectile damage, 15% a pop, and a bit of extra Drain expertise. So that's the biggest items that you're going to pick up there. Getting into our skills and our specializations, our skill tree is pretty much the standard setup that we've been using here on the show for a while. I'm not going to go into really big technical details on why we picked some of the points that we did. We've got a video for that if anybody's interested. We can link that to you. Now for this particular thing, you can see our lieutenant level skills, lieutenant commander, commander level skills, our captain level skills, and our admiral level skills. So it's basically a catch-all build designed to adapt to any situation. And we went with Intel primary, strategist secondary, so that's going to give you some potential balance to the Intel tree. As far as our traits go, for personal space, we have our beam training, which is free beam damage, beam barrage for our R&D crafting trait. We always assume you've leveled at least 1 crafting school. In this case, we're assuming beams. We have fleet coordinator for free damage based on the amount of people in your party, 2% minimum, counting just yourself, or up to a 10% maximum, assuming a full team. Grace Under Fire, which is the engineering career-specific trait. We assume, or we usually assume engineer in this case, because that's what the builder defaults to, unless otherwise specified for us. If you're not an engineer, but you're interested in using the build, swap out the Grace Under Fire for your own career-specific trait, and you are good to go. Next, we have Nanite Repair Matrix, which is a decent heal when we drop below 50% hull. Redirected Armor Plating, which is going to give some all-damage resist rating when struck from behind or the sides. Point Blank Shot from House Peg, which is going to give us a Category 2 energy damage bonus the closer we are to the target, up to a specific maximum. Elusive for free defensive value, which will make the ship harder to hit. And finally, Projectile Training for some free projectile damage, which will also boost our Energy Torpedo. As far as our Starship traits go, this is one of our builds where we're actually able to get 4 traits onto our build. We have our improved predictive algorithms from our Intel, which is going to give some accuracy as well as some other boosting. Best Defense from House Peg, which is going to give our hull, or give a hull healing buff along with the normal effects of our attack patterns. Unconventional Tactics, our Brace for Impact, is going to give a damage increase for a short time. That is actually a Cat 2 bonus. Then we have our Supercharged Weapons. Firing a torpedo will provide a stack of the supercharged buff, and it provides a boost to directed energy weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical severity for a short time, stacking up to 3 times. Then for our space reputations, we have our Advanced Target Systems for free severity, our Aux Power Offense for a boost depending on our Aux Power, damage boost that is. Energy Refrequencer to help keep us alive based on the attacks we're doing and the damage dealt. Then we have Precision for free critical hit chance. That's what we have for our static bonuses. Active Reputations, our Anti-Time Entanglement Singularity. It's an AoE physical damage and slow to foes that will dissipate over time. Biomolecular Shield Generator, which is going to give us a bit of shield regen as well as some damage reduction to our shields as long as we're inside the bubble. Deploy Sensor Interference Platform is a nice little "oh crap, I'm gonna die" button. It'll poof up a little sensor platform that will taunt foes to itself until either the duration runs out or the sensor platform is destroyed, whichever of those two things happens first. And finally, Quantum Singularity Manipulation. This is going to give a pretty huge boost to all of our science stats for the duration it's active, and also a temporary cloaking effect. To get a little more bang for your buck out of your anti-time, pop your exotic buffs first, follow with something maybe like a Gravel to group them up, hit your Quantum Singularity Manipulation, and then crack off your anti-time on top of that. Now, rounding out our build this evening with our bridge officers, for this particular version of the Odyssey, you have a Lieutenant Commander Universal / Command, an Ensign Universal, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Commander Engineering, and Lieutenant Science. Now, for our Lieutenant Commander Universal seat, we made that into a command, and we have our Torpedo Spread 1 to take advantage of our Torp. We also have our Scatter Volley 1, which is going to take advantage of our turret, as well as our 3-piece Morphogenic. Then for our Ensign Universal, we made that into a science seat, and we stuck a polarized hull in there, just as something to give a little bit of extra damage resistance when need be. Also makes us immune to tractor beams and similar stuff. That can be swapped out for another power, if needed. For our Lieutenant Commander Tactical, we have our Tactical Team 1, which is going to redirect our shields, automatically purge boarding parties, and give some nice offensive buffs as well. We have our Attack Pattern Delta, which is going to debuff enemy damage resistance when they shoot us, and buff us by the same amount. So very nice to have. Then we also have our Fire at Will 3, which is going to let us smack pretty much anything in range with a beam, and it's our AoE beam attack. For Commander Engineering, we have our Engineering Team 1. This is going to heal our hull a bit, purge viral matrix type effects. Our Emergency Power to Engines, which is going to give us a nice little get the heck out of dodge boost to our engines in terms of speed. Maybe allow us to get to a certain destination on the map a lot faster. Then we also have our Emergency Power to Weapons 3, which is going to be a nice damage boost as well as extra power to our weapons. Then we have our Reverse Shield Polarity 3, which is going to round out our engineering powers and allow us to recharge our shields off of incoming damage in a pinch. Can potentially allow us to keep ourselves alive a lot longer. For our last bridge officer powers, we have our Science Team, which is going to heal our shields and purge pesky effects such as subnucleonic-based effects and subnucleonic-based debuffs. Then we also have, for our final power, our Hazard Emitters, which is going to be a little bit of damage reduction, a heal over time effect, and it's going to purge certain things like the Borg Plasma Fires. Now, the one thing I did want to mention really quickly, as far as our weapons goes, now the reason we're able to get the chronometric 3-piece is because we actually went with the turret instead of the Omni. As much as it sucks, there is a shared lockout between the morphogenic energy weapon and the chronometric Omni. You can't have both on the build. So that is one reason why we went with the turret there, that I did want to make note of. As far as overall cost to build the ship, you're looking at about 30,000 dilithium, assuming that you've unlocked some of the discounts, and assuming Tier 6 reps is in effect. And that's it as far as the cost goes. Comments on this one? in particular, good sir?
No, not really. I mean, considering what you're trying to do with it and the set bonuses and everything, it's not bad.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. It's got the stamp of approval from our resident Odyssey pilot. But, anyways, that's what we have for a budget build this evening and whatnot. Like I say, I kind of wanted to build this one off of some banter I saw in one of the groups. Now, we don't have an RP corner this evening because Artie was unable to join us. He's been having some internet issues due to, I believe, the recent storms he had said as well. But hopefully he'll be back with us this next week. Like I say, we've had some issues with the hosts and stuff due to the weather and whatnot, and yeah, it hasn't been feasible until tonight for us to actually get an episode out there for you guys that would be the quality that we want to put out there. But we'll have a link to this budget build in the notes for you guys. You can use that to maybe give yourself some ideas. You know, maybe you want to use this exact build. That's perfectly fine. If you have any questions or whatnot, you know, feel free to drop those in the comments for us. We'll try to answer your questions as best as we can. But anyways, that's what we've got for a show this evening. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. Now, as always, on our way out the door, we want to give a shout out to our good friends over at the Temporal Armada. Very cool bunch of people. Be sure to check out some of their programming as well. Very cool bunch of folks. Also a shout out to our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. Party is there. They've always got a good selection of music.
They do.
I've got to give them that much. But, as always, if you've got any requests for the Budget Builds Corner, let us know. Sometimes we just take ideas from banter we see going on in the groups, and a lot of times we also take requests from you guys. You know, let us know, say, hey, this is the ship I'm looking at doing a build for. You know, this is all I've got as far as resources, enough for a bare bones build, or I want something more mid-range, or I want something more high-end. You know, I want to go for a tank, or I want to be a space wizard, or I want to be a damage dealer. Let us know, and we'll hook you up. If you feel that your gear and your initial setup are in order, and it's your piloting that needs a little bit of work, get a brief video clip showing us your piloting, and we will review that, and we'll hopefully be able to help you improve, and if need be, go on some missions with you and see where you're at. Give a little bit more personalized help. But if you have any requests or topics for the RP Corner, do let Artie know. He does take requests on that, and he may just talk about your topic on air. But as always, guys, that's all we have this evening. We hope you've enjoyed the show. You know, I know we've been absent for a few weeks and whatnot. I don't know which one of you pissed off Zeus and whatnot, but please stop doing that. But all joking aside and everything, like I say, we do hope everybody that's been in the path of these storms stays safe and whatnot. We hope we'll be able to be back at full capacity for you guys pretty quick. Glad we're able to get back out here for you guys finally. But anyways, folks, that's what we've got for a show this evening. For everybody that's been in the path of this rain, stay safe and whatnot. But for now, folks, this is the Pilot Review Show reminding you to have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
We out!